Hi MNLA members, this is your Government Affairs Director Alicia Munson, and I'm happy to bring to you today another video update. And we're here this morning with our contract lobbyist, Doug Carnival. Hi Doug.
Hello Alicia, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Great, thank you so much for joining us.
Certainly.
And we wanted to bring Doug in today because, as you guys know, the legislative session recently wrapped up and he is the expert on all of the dynamics that have been going on at the Capitol. So as all of our members know, the legislature in the House and the Senate is controlled by the Republican Party, whereas Governor Mark Dayton is a member of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. So that kind of created some interesting dynamics toward the end of session. And even now. So Doug, can you kind of give us an update about what went on?
Absolutely, Alicia. You know, we always say that this session is the most unusual we've ever seen, but this truly is the most unusual we've ever seen. Not only did we end up with a special session, the governor has just recently indicated that he is probably going to call a second special session, which is even more unusual than just having one special session. All of this is because the dynamic between the governor and the legislature for the entire year was one of hostility, maybe too strong of a word, but contention may be the best word. His ideas with respect to the budget and what to spend our state's money on and what kind of tax relief are appropriate are very different from the Republicans in the House and the Senate. And as a result, that strife between the two parties caused them to battle about the budget along the way. They got to the end of the regular session with no solution on the amount of money that ought to be spent on the budget, how much tax relief there ought to be, and literally got to 45 minutes before the constitutional adjournment date. And they finally made what appeared to be an agreement globally on all the issues. They adjourned after their special session, sent him all of the bills, expecting him to sign all of the budget bills and tax bill. And of course, he then said, I don't think so. No. What I'm going to do is, and this is the first time in my almost 40 years at the Capitol, what he did was he signed all the bills, but line item vetoed the appropriation for the legislature to continue its work. Now, that's creative, if nothing else. That says, I'll let the agencies continue, we'll let all the state workers continue, we'll let all the programs that are funded by the budget continue, and we'll let all the tax bill provisions go into effect. But I'm not going to fund the legislature's operations unless you come back in a second special session and correct some things in the tax bill and a couple other bills that I am unhappy with that he didn't think were part of the deal that they cut. One of them has to do with a tax reduction for businesses on their commercial industrial property tax. Another one has to do with a tax break for the tobacco industry that he's very upset about, because in the process there were substantial cuts to his human service budget, much of which he is very sympathetic to, and the Republicans think is an uncontrolled, growing, out of control part of the budget. So we have this interesting situation where the legislature may not be able to operate next year or even for the remainder of this year because they don't have any money to operate starting July 1st because the governor has vetoed their provision.
So all of that being said, despite some of the conflict that's going on now, there was a lot accomplished at the legislature. And the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association had 3 top priorities that we were advocating for throughout session. You might have seen them on our legislative agenda. That was ending the duty to defend, securing funding for emerald ash borer management, and the uniform state labor standards. Now, in addition to the 10 budget bills that the legislature sent to Governor Dayton that he did sign, as Doug indicated, he did choose to veto one bill, which was the Uniform State Labor Standards bill. So Doug, can you give us a little bit of an update about that?
The governor has been opposed to this, as you might imagine, as have the delegations from Minneapolis and St. Paul and most of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, the DFLers. The legislature was successful in putting a package together to send to the governor, but they were very ingenious as well. He said he'd veto that bill, so what they did was they packaged into that bill some things that the governor really wanted, having to do with pensions for state workers, having to do with sick leave for state workers. Some of the things that he has really wanted, so they put it in the same bill and sent it to him, daring him to veto the bill, which would mean he'd veto things that he really wanted for state employees. They did that, and he, in fact, then vetoed the bill, taking the heat, explaining that this was a inappropriate combination of two subjects forcing my hand. But he promised he'd veto that Uniform Labor Standards, or preemption as it's sometimes called, and has vetoed that bill. So from a legislative perspective, we were successful in getting the legislature to advance that, and they tried to ingeniously make the governor sign it, but he has been resistant to that idea, mostly swayed by the folks from Minneapolis and St. Paul, and many of the organized labor forces as well. So.
The city of Minneapolis is currently engaged in a lawsuit with the Chamber of Commerce, and a judge did indicate that they may not be able to mandate employers outside of the city limits from complying with that ordinance. So it'll be interesting to see as that ongoing court case progresses. The city of St. Paul still has that provision within their ordinance that this applies to any business that sends employees into the city of St. Paul. So that'll go into effect this summer, and it'll be really interesting to see what the outcome of that court case is. So regarding the other couple of legislative priorities that we were working closely on, we made really great progress in raising awareness about the need to end the duty to defend and establish equity for subcontractors, as well as raising awareness about the detrimental impact of this invasive species, the emerald ash borer. We worked in coalition with partners like MnSTAC. A lot of MNLA members came to the table to talk about this issue, and what we ended up hearing was legislators conversing in our terms about why this is such an important priority and why it's something that's going to really have a statewide impact that the legislature needs to focus on. We were unable to secure any funding, but this was something that we built really great relationships around, and I think even members of the general public are starting to talk about this with the folks that represent them directly. So the MNLA will certainly continue to have a leadership role in advancing this issue in future legislative sessions. Overall, I just want to say that it was such a success this time around working with our advocates. We really increased the visibility of the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association within the legislature and the green industry as a whole. We saw some great engagement with legislators on social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. A lot of legislators were sharing our photos from our day on the Hill, liking our Grassroots Grows Results posts that all of you participated in, and just generally we saw a lot of people coming out and speaking about the impact of the green industry on Minnesota's economy, and so that's always a win.
Exactly, and just to dovetail with what Alicia said, the day on the Hill is critical to our success. I like to tell all of my clients that I'm one guy up there advocating on your behalf, but the people who really make an impact are all of you who come down there and meet with the legislators that represent you and represent your businesses. They love to visit with you, they love to hear what you have to say, and when you do that, they listen. Trust me, they really do listen.
So while all of you are incredibly busy with this peak time in the season, I really look forward to continuing to work with members of the Government Affairs Committee and leaders like Doug to build coalition and advance some of our priorities, even in the interim, even when the legislature is adjourned, heading into the 2018 legislative session, which, as we said, is starting up next year. But you know what, you guys, there were so many things that went on this legislative session. We just don't have time to talk about all of it in this short video. Thousands of bills, literally thousands of bills were introduced in both bodies. There was a lot that happened that impacted the green industry, and maybe you specifically. So check out my full session outcomes report that you can find on the Legislative Action Center at mnla.biz. I just want to thank Doug for being here with me today. As always, sharing your expertise with us is so valuable.
Thank you, Alicia, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to talk to your members, and it's been a delight working with you this year. You've been a great asset to the organization.
Thanks, everybody. We hope to see you soon.
See you soon.